Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review. Muse, The Second Law.
Isn't that the internet? You go on all the time?
No. That's Mew. That's M-U.
Oh, okay.
Hi Mew. Hi MU.
Mule is my favorite site on the deep web. It's true.
Alright, Muse is a band from the UK. This is their 6th full-length album, The Second Law. And it is the follow-up to the extremely controversial album in their discography, The Resistance, which dropped in 2009, and showed the band, which was once a group with an alternative rock sound with some progressive and space rock tendencies, shifting into much more of a symphonic style. Strangely enough, Muse's really kind of campy, excessive, and symphonic approach to progressive rock actually kind of appealed to me. For example, when I listened to the song Survival off of this LP, which is every bit as gaudy as a track from The Resistance, I mean, it is redonkulously over the top with piano and heavy riffs and Queen-style background vocals. The singer in the group, Matthew Bellamy, delivers his lyrics as if he's some kind of character in a play. You know, when I hear that, I just can't help but be entertained. I mean, if you're gonna be showy, this is the way to do it. It's a track that when I think of it being performed, I see pyrotechnics and I see costumes, and of course I also see the giant operatic choral group that is kind of soaring behind the rock instrumentation. And I think if Muse stuck with that sound consistently on this new LP, they would have had another kind of solid album in that vein. But I kind of feel like Muse is in the same position Block Party is with this new album, kind of delivering a batch of tracks that sonically and stylistically jump around all over the place. However, in the case of Muse, the band has kind of brought themselves into this impossible game of twister and contorted this project into something that is trying to touch as many dots as possible, thereby making a very mangled end product, so mangled that you kind of want to call 911. Now, this LP opens up with the track Supremacy, which is kind of in the vein of Muse's last LP. It's a capable opener, you know, symphonic rock, heavy, huge, over the top. I wasn't really kind of having my skirt lifted too high by this track. I felt like the strings were maybe a little too Led Zeppelin on the song, but it did have me looking forward to what was coming. But the more I listened to it, the second track, Madness, just feels incredibly out of place and just kind of out of touch with Muse's usual grandeur. Grandeur? It just kind of feels like Muse decided to throw a pop song together, and it starts off pretty interesting and well-intentioned, an electronic style pop love song with a really kind of catchy hook to it. I don't mean what Bellamy is singing, but the but the lyrics to me don't say anything about the relationship that is kind of fueling this entire song. And I feel like the longer the track goes, the more uninteresting it gets to me. It kind of starts off as this electronic pop song and then ends up being this piece of soulless, futuristic soul. The track Panic Station comes in right after this, and to me it's really one of the more surprising tracks on the album, another shift in gears. It's pretty much everything that was trendy about radio rock in the late 80s and early 90s put together in a room all at once and screaming as loud as it possibly can. I've already mentioned the track Survival, which I love, but the song Follow Me comes in right after that, and I feel like they take my high from the previous song and totally smash it with a track that actually sounds like it could be maybe Coldplay inspired toward the beginning. The drums are rising. Bellamy has some pretty dramatic intro vocals. There are some electronics bubbling in the atmosphere around the rhythm. I'm kind of expecting something pretty good, but then dubstep wobbles come in. Couldn't Muse have approached this in such a way where it feels like they're not just ripping a bass wobble from another hot dubstep producer's track and then just placing it on top of their own? It just sounds like somebody else came in and remixed the song for them. The track Animals is one of the more quiet and dramatic moments on here, though it does have a very tight groove to it. But the song Explorers right after that, to me, is really one of the more interesting spots on the album. It's a track that, if I were to take it out and just make it stand alone, I would love it. The instrumentation on this track rises very slowly, very nicely. I mean, Muse has some talent when it comes to building up a song when they're doing it with this kind of instrumentation, for sure. And I really like the melody on this track. It's got some personality, and the way that the song is being delivered, a lot like on the track Survival, it does have kind of an element of musical theater to it. And that definitely comes out in the lyrics as well, where Bellamy is singing about these two people who are locked into this world that they just wish they weren't born in. They don't belong here. It's a track that I would see working perfectly if it were actually doing what it kind of feels like it's doing. Bringing a ballad into play where we can kind of have a moment of reflection after all of these exhilarating tracks that came before. But that doesn't happen here because, let's face it, there's not really a story so far for this track to add on to. And on top of that, all the songs before have not been exhilarating. It's been an obstacle course of string sections and puke from the 80s and dubstep wobbles and basically forgettable Muse moments. However, the ending of this album you will not forget. I promise you, it is just a grandiose display of self-destruction. Right after this track, the band washes Explorers down with what sounds like a U2 cover on the track Big Freeze. And then the last four tracks, man, if this were like a gymnastics competition, the last four tracks here would basically be the equivalent to a dismount where you break both of your legs. The track Save Me that comes in, I've never really heard Muse put out such a lifeless, momentumless song. I mean, at least when Muse is being over the top and kind of obnoxious, which I know bothers a lot of people, there's color and there's flavor and there's personality there. I mean, this just does not have much of anything. As far as emotion goes, it's just a gray sky. Vocals aren't even really as over the top as other tracks, and not because I feel like they're slower, quieter songs. I mean, you know, Liquid State does try to be pretty hard hitting. It does have a driving tempo, but you know, it's just kind of a dud. But then Second Law Unsustainable comes in, and you already know how I feel about that track from my track review of it. And then after that, the band brings in a really forgettable instrumental piano outro with the same kind of, you know, news anchor audio clips that were playing in the previous track. And it's just, I'm just leaving it at that. I'm pretty much feeling a light to decent 3 on this LP. If you've given it a listen, what do you think? You know, did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And what should I review next? Anthony Fantano, Muse, forever.